A few years ago, I was watching AEW on a weekly basis, and then I actually had to stop watching AEW because I live with my brother, and he cut the cable, and then also like just life got in the way really. So the last time I was watching AEW on television was like 2019, and then like 2 years ago I started to actually go to their shows, and I really enjoyed it. But I just I want to get to a pattern of watching AEW weekly, and it was really like upsetting to me with the Savannah show because to me it felt like everybody was like really slow with their choreography, and honestly looked like a lot of the wrestlers were out of shape really. Like Wardlow looked like he had a really bad tan, and he also looked like he gained a bunch of he gained like a beer belly. And I also felt like that was the same thing with Thunder Rosa. She looked like she gained a bit of a beer belly, and and everything just looked like a little off. It honestly felt like I think everybody was having a harder time with their choreography, and I also kind of blame it with whoever was doing the television work, like who was ever like filming and cutting the television production. They did a very poor job. And then also I was kind of mad too because they kept cutting to the ceiling. It felt really stupid. So it may be a mix of maybe the wrestlers, their all everybody's game was a little bit off last night, or also it was definitely just bad television production. So that's how I feel about it. But I think another big concern is that AEW is not treating Revolution like a big deal. And I've kind of said many things that honestly, the one of the reasons why AEW's philosophy was to have not that many pay per views was so that they can treat pay per views like a big deal. They're not doing something like you see in WWE, where you're going to have the Royal Rumble, then you're going to have an NXT show, then you're going to have Elimination Chamber, and then you're going to have WrestleMania. Because sometimes they would have like like two or three shows in a row, or like I think one year they had Saudi Arabia. They had like Hell in a Cell with the feet with Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins, and then they had the Saudi Arabia show. So they really threw that match under the bus, and that really kind of caused a lot of bad attention because that was when they had like probably the worst Hell in a Cell match ever, and the one where Bray Wyatt was kind of invincible, then it ended with a referee stoppage, but. But definitely, it was kind of clear that WWE didn't care. They were kind of just they wanted to do what they wanted to do, really. And I think that I'm kind of seeing that with AEW, especially with Revolution. Like honestly, like I've kind of said, if I was part of the booking committee, I would have everybody kind of talk about, you know what, this is a historic pay per view because this is where Sting retires. So to have a match on that card is a big deal because that goes down in professional wrestling history. Because Sting is an icon, he is a legend, and honestly, they need to start treating his retirement like a really big deal. So what I definitely want to see is many people, maybe like the last 2 or 3 weeks of AEW, or even like on February 1st, they kind of start. I mean after the Royal Rumble. I think after the Royal Rumble would be the best thing. After the Royal Rumble, they have to kind of be like, okay, Sting is retiring. Everybody wants a match on that card. Everybody wants to get points in the ranking system to have a match on that card because obviously it's a piece of professional wrestling history. And then some people should say things like, Sting is retiring. I want to be on that card. I want to be a big deal. I want to have. I want to like have all the matches that I can, have all the victories that I can to be there. And I think you're going to have something really, really great. And then also some of the wrestlers who are actually going to be there. I really, really think that they need to start talking about what a big deal it is. Because honestly, it's like what some people were saying about Sting. Obviously when he was having the match at the Kia Forum, that there was no advertisement saying, Sting's final Los Angeles match or final California area match. When they had a match at World's End, they should have said Sting's final New York area event. When Sting has a match, I think he's having a match in Arizona. They should say like Sting's final Arizona match or Southwest match, and kind of keep doing it like that. Then at Greensboro Coliseum, they kind of have that. I think that when they had Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels, everybody kind of knew that it was going to be Ric Flair's quote unquote retirement match or WWE retirement match. So they should have, even though they kind of made a bunch of big mega matches, that should have kind of been the one that was really celebrated and marketed because that was a piece of history. But with Sting, they should do the exact same effect. Really, this is something that never ever happens. And Sting has been very essential to professional wrestling. And honestly, if you look at maybe the top like 20 people in professional wrestling history, like the greatest of the greats, Sting is definitely on that list. You know, Adam Copeland, no, and even if you look at that roster, nobody else really is that like super megastar. The only megastars that they have is Jim Ross, the best announcer ever. Then they also have Ric Flair, and then they also have Sting. But obviously, Sting's their only like active, like super legend wrestler. So they really have to treat it like a big deal. So I really think from now until Revolution, just to reiterate, people should be talking about why they want to be on that card, why they want to have a victory on that card, why they want to have matches on Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision, and with why they want to be super competitive. It's going to do a couple of things. And number one, it's going to make the race systems mean something, and it's also going to help a lot of wrestlers because obviously one issue with AEW, and I know I've said this many times, is that they're like Marvel versus Capcom. It's two people having a match with no build and no like kind of like aftermath. And then the other thing is obviously you need to treat your pay-per-views like a big deal. And as I said, this should be treated as a big deal like Wembley Stadium because, something historic is happening and definitely people want to be a part of that history instead of being like, okay, well, I got no points, I can't do it. I would, if I was a wrestler, I would want to be on the card. I would like say if Tony Khan's like, okay, well, I can't fill my Rampage show, my Dark Match show, my ROH show. I would be a wrestler, being like, I want to have all the matches that I can because I want to be on that card. I don't care, and if I don't make it, I will do something like I'll work in the ring crew. I will, buy a ticket, so I'm in the front row. I want to be involved in any way possible, and you don't really see that with any wrestler on that roster. It kind of feels like, what, they're just there to be there. They kind of are a little bit, they kind of feel a little lax, or they kind of feel like, it's the same old shit. There's really no sense of hyping or treating things like a big deal. And I think that that's kind of why AEW has gone down a little bit. It doesn't feel like the wrestlers itself or people in the organization are treating it like a big deal. I think, and then I'm a little worried. I do think that obviously, the big polar shift was definitely the Brawl for All at Wembley Stadium. But they need to kind of get back to that. And I also think that every wrestler needs to kind of like act like it means the whole world to them to have a match at Revolution because of what it means to professional wrestling history. And I also will say that's a thing to go forward with. What happens if Tony Khan says, okay, well, the Casino Battle Royale at Double or Nothing, it's going to be 8 people. So 8 people with like the highest scores, among that, people who get the highest scores, will be in the Casino Battle Royale. Obviously there's going to be some people that are going to be so high that they have the ability to challenge for titles, and there's going to be some people that actually, are going to have so many points that are going to have. How I would say it is that there's going to be some people with a lot of points, and those people with a lot of points can challenge for titles, and that there are going to be some people who have a lot of points, but they're almost in like a second, in a second place type of group where they can battle for the Casino Battle Royale, and they talk about a big deal. Or even if you did like, okay, you took like 16 people, and they had a series of matches, and the winners of all those matches, like the people with like the top 8 points actually start having talking about like what that means to them, and then they are in the Casino Battle Royale, and then you take it from there, really. So definitely it's almost like every pay-per-view you do, you have to treat it like, it's like the biggest deal in the world. And I think that that's kind of been the issue with AEW. They don't really have that. And I understand that it's kind of defeating when you had 70,000 people at Wembley Stadium, and there was a lot of attention, and they got thrown away. And sometimes it happens in life where you do everything right, and then there's something where it's historical and it should be celebrated, and nobody's talking about it afterwards because of something that happened. Really, I think the AEW has lost its kind of it's really resiliency, and it's also really lost its kind of what's the word? Just inspiring to treat something like a big deal. I think that a lot of the wrestlers now were excited when it started, but now they kind of have the attitude of it's just a week to week, really, and that's unfortunate. They need to kind of get back to that vigor that they had. And like I've said, that one thing about Revolution is it starts the WrestleMania season. March 3rd, that's the first pay per view of that's the first pay per view in March, and then in a couple of weeks you have two shows, Impact Wrestling shows. Then you have SmackDown in Connecticut. Then you have like shows in Philadelphia for WrestleMania, and then you have a show in Brooklyn to close out the WrestleMania season the night after WrestleMania. So I really just want to see really AEW try to just yeah, just try to make it a big deal, and I mean, AEW try to treat it like a big deal, and that's going to be like really important. And obviously, this is a huger deal because definitely if you start AEW very strong this year, that's going to be very important because obviously if other people looking at other shows, they'll say like, okay, well TNA has two shows in Philadelphia. Wow, those are really strong shows, but AEW isn't. People are going to put more attention on TNA. If you're going to do Roman versus The Rock, that's a really big deal. But what would happen if AEW knocks people's socks off at the Greensboro Coliseum, and then also it's nearly sold out, and obviously it's Sting's last match? There's a lot of needed attention for that. So if they don't treat it like a big deal and they act kind of like laissez-faire, very similar to Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker, it's going to come off as lackluster, and then it's not going to set up a momentum for the whole entire year. Really, this is really a maker or breaker for AEW. And if you want to talk about Wembley Stadium 2024, have a bunch of great shows, and this is a show that needs to be great, and wrestlers need to treat it like a big deal going into Revolution. If I was a wrestler at AEW, I would talk about, what, Sting's an icon, Sting's a badass, and I want to do anything that I can have a match on the card. I don't care if I have to get my ass whooped by Wardlow, 50 times. If that's what it takes, really, or if I need to pick a fight with every, bad motherfucker on the roster to get a shot at to get a match at Revolution. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. It takes peeing in Samoa coffee, so he wants to fight me and ignore the ranking system. That's what I'll do. So that's kind of like you need more wrestlers that are going to act like that and behave like that. It's the big deal of big deals because obviously Sting retiring on that is important. So AEW really needs to get to work on this.